Hey everyone, Docwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Vengeful Spirit. Now, Vengeful Spirit is usually called Venge, and you can play this hero in one of two main ways, basically as a support, and as a core, the hero is really not that popular, so we're not going to focus on core Venge. If anything, it might be played off lane, but when it's played off lane, it's just played the same way as a support, pretty much. It's just that you have more items and more money, and so you're just like a little bit more effective at doing what you normally do anyway. And the old style like carry Venge and stuff, that's not really a thing anymore. I mean, maybe they will eventually buff this here in a way that brings that back, but that's probably not going to happen because they've just been changing this hero more and more to be like a support, and every time it comes back into the meta, it's a support. So we're going to be focusing on support Venge. So how do we think about support Venge? Well, the main way to think about this hero is this is a save positioning hero. So what you do is you just save your allies when they get gone on and initiated on, and you do that by like positioning. So you swap people in and out. So basically wherever your hero is, you swap positions with them, and that can be very, very good against something like Chrono, because I believe you can swap in and out of Chrono. You can swap for like any kind of initiation that's really good, and so you allow your core to basically play extremely aggressive, push a tower, push the base, do all these different things against spells they wouldn't normally be able to, against lineups they wouldn't normally be able to. But because you're sitting in the back and you're just threatening maybe out of vision to save your ally, then, you know, the enemy team kind of has to debate, oh, do I really want to go in on this guy? Do I really want to initiate on this carry or this mid or whatever? Because they're just going to get saved, and then they're going to be in a better position, and then they can maybe turn. So a good example of that would be like Axe. Axe wants to jump in, call somebody, they want to delete that person. Well, if you just swap them out, now you're not stunned, but they are. Yeah, there might be, the stun still lasts, so, you know, they might be able to chase from the swap and still hit the Axe, but it's not as big of a deal. They're not as in danger as they were. So that's a pretty good example. Or like bigger ultimates like a Chrono or something, you can swap in and out, which is really good. So that's what Venge does as a support. That's the main way this hero plays. It's the main aspect of the hero. You also have a stun. You also have some like damage amplification and stuff like that. So some passive things that just help in the team fight. Some vision, which is really good. So there's all these little things that you do as a support that are bonuses basically to the fact that you're a very good save hero. And then kind of contrasted to that, or on the flip side, you also are a very good chase and pursue hero. That means it's very hard for enemies with low mobility to get out. If they're losing the fight and you want to chase them, you're very good with that. In the same way that you can save enemies, you can also, or save allies, you can also be very aggressive on enemies if they're trying to run away. So that's also the other benefit. But it's not like the main thing that this hero does, really, for the most part. Although it is good, it's really all about the save and all about the stun and that stuff, to just like amp up the positioning of the hero, of your allies, and all that kind of stuff. Now, in terms of strengths and weaknesses, like we already said, Axe is like a good example. You know, Initiation is a good example of heroes that this hero is good against. Heroes that it's bad against are heroes that like don't, you know, if the enemy team doesn't really rely on big initiations, then it can kind of feel like, oh, well, they're just like poking us to death, you know, and they're not really jumping in on us, and that can kind of be annoying. Or they're outranging us like a drow. It's really hard to like get in there all the way where, you know, you're sitting in the back, then in the front is your core, and then drow's kind of sitting even further back, or like sniper sitting even further back. It's really hard to like swap them in to position or to save your allies much. And even if you do save them, they're not really, you know, they're not committing a lot. They're just kind of like poking people from far away. And the other thing is mobility. So mobility, you know, if you swap somebody out, well, they can just chase that person down if they stun them, because there's an Ember Spirit or a Storm Spirit or something like that that can just jump in, and then they can kill you, or they can chase the ally that you swapped or anything like that. Or if there's a lot of mobility, like an Ember, like a Puck, anything like that, and you are trying to chase them down after you're winning a team fight, well, they don't really care as much because they can just remnant out or zip out or whatever, orb out with Puck, that kind of stuff. So, you know, they buy maybe Blink and all these things. So just one little swap in isn't really going to do as much to them. So it's harder to take advantage of your aggressive plays when you have that ability to. So a lot of mobility or like poke is very good against this hero, where the big initiations, the big ultimates, that kind of stuff can be heavily countered by this hero. So that's how to think about Vengeful Spirit in general. Now let's jump in and take a look at the abilities. Now that we understand Venge in general, we can take a look at her abilities and see how she's able to be that really good save support or aggressive pursuing support like I talked about. So first, pretty straightforward and simple, we have Magic Missile. This is one of the simplest stuns in the game. You literally just point it at an enemy, You shoot out a missile, and it stuns them after it hits them and does some damage. It's really that straightforward. There's not much else to it. Pretty low cooldown. You can use many times in a fight, usually over prolonged fights. Very good early for harassing in lane, all that kind of stuff. Just a normal stun. Really not much else to it. Then we have Wave of Terror. This is a pretty simple spell as well. You just kind of click a direction and you send out a wave. So you can see I just click over there. And it has a pretty long range. You can see the AoE there. And what that does is it actually gives vision. So we'll put on free spells. So if I didn't have vision, actually I don't have vision over here at the tree. So let me just show you there. You can kind of see in the trees now once the Wave of Terror goes there. And that's very helpful for not only landing stuns, but also the ultimate, which we'll get to in a second, which I also briefly talked about already. But Wave of Terror is good for that, vision primarily. It also does some damage, so it's good for canceling blinks and things like that. So if you do hit somebody with this, if they're waiting in the trees to blink, now they can no longer initiate, so it's good for counter-initiating like that. And then obviously you can swap them in, all those kind of things. And the other two big things it does, it actually reduces armor, which is good just in general. You hit somebody with that. You hit a few people with that in a team fight, and that's just overall good. It's kind of one of those things that people don't really realize about the Wave of Terror as much. And then the attack damage reduction as well, which I think is like a recent thing that they added, which makes this hero very good. Because now, at max level, you know, the enemy not only takes more damage, they're doing less damage. So it's just a very good overall spell. It does a lot of different things. So where this is very simple and does one thing, stun and damage, basically two things, stun and damage, this does like a bunch of different things. Gives vision, minus armor, cancels blinks, attack damage reduction, does damage as well. It does a little bit of everything. So it's a very, very good spell overall. And then the passive Vengeance Aura. This one's pretty boring. A lot of passives are boring, and this one is relatively boring. It just gives base bonus damage in an AoE. Really just that simple. Not very hard to understand, but is very good. I mean, base percentage bonus damage is very good, especially with certain heroes that have a lot of base damage. That's just awesome for your carry, and it's a very big AoE. So as long as you are in the team fight, you are just amping up your team because you're giving them more damage. Everyone has more damage. Now you're subtracting other people's damage, minus armor, all this kind of stuff. You have stuns throwing out. You just make everybody like just better on your team when you're just standing there, which is really, really good. So that's also why, although you will probably die, you don't want to die as much as possible. You want to still be there for the stuns, for the Wave of Terror, and for the Vengeance Aura, but you are going to be putting yourself in bad positions from time to time. So you need to be very careful about that. Try not to die as much as possible, because the last ability, the ultimate, kind of what defines the hero, is Nether Swap. And this is pretty straightforward too. It's really not a complicated hero in terms of like what the abilities do, but in terms of positioning and making sure you're using everything correctly, it can get a little bit tricky. There is some skill to it. So basically, you can see here, let's say the axe, this axe here, calls my friendly axe with his Q. So he does that, and then I can swap the axe back out, and then, yeah, he's still taunted, he still has to run at the axe, but then, you know, he's not taking as much damage, the axe isn't spinning, all that kind of stuff. It can be very, very good for saving allies. Same thing can be true if this axe, we're fighting, the axe realizes it's, time to leave. Well, too bad. You're swapped in now, and now the axe is in a bad position. We're going to stun him, all that kind of stuff, because obviously I'll use my magic missile after that. Very, very good for positioning, for saving, for being aggressive and chasing people down. The other thing this does is it also offers damage reduction, which is really good. It also does a little bit of damage too, so people can't blink out. And it's really only to stop blinks. That's kind of the main thing that it does. But really, the damage reduction is very, very good, because that is what sort of allows you to still be alive after you save somebody. It also allows, like, not just the positioning for your ally, but allows everyone to be tankier so that you can survive this initiation even better, and then you are still giving everybody the buffs or the stuns or the things that you need. And then, so now you swapped out of a stun, you're not stunned, you can potentially run away, you can use Force Staff, you can use Glimmer Cape, whatever other items you bought as a support, and you take a lot less damage. So if they do want to just, now you're in a bad position, if the enemy does want to commit on you and try to kill you, it's going to take a lot more spells, a lot more damage, a lot more time to bring you down, where it allows your allies to use their abilities to, reposition, to do anything that they need to do to counter-initiate that initial team fight start that the enemy did. So it's just very good. It causes a lot of chaos. This hero's pretty good right now for all of these things. And then I will say the one thing that I kind of haven't mentioned yet, because it is an item and it is the Ags, and it is kind of the big part of the hero, is this is what allows you to just like make sure you're always having an effect in the team fight no matter what happens, even if you swap people in. And what this does is it basically just gives you a free life, basically. When you die, you create an illusion of yourself, and you just are allowed to basically able to use all of your abilities. So you basically just have 2 free lives. Now you're still dead. It's not like Wraith King. I mean, you still give enemies gold and all that kind of stuff, and there's not really a cooldown with it. It's more just that, like, once you die, you're dead, and then you have an illusion. If that dies, then you're dead. You know, it's done. But that's what really helps you be even more effective in team fights and those kinds of things, because then you don't even care. You almost want them to kill you, because they have to kill you once and then you're dead, but who cares? If you die again, it's just an illusion, and now you're still doing all your spells minus armor, giving everybody amped up damage, stunning people. It can just be very annoying. If you're able to get this Ags with a good timing, that is, and it's not like sacrificing, you know, you're not just like wasting 30 minutes to get one item, and you don't desperately need a Glimmer Cape, or you don't desperately need a Force Staff. This item is just so good for the hero, because I feel like if you get this at an early timing as a support, you can just win the game straight up off of this item, because you can be so annoying to deal with. That's why this hero can sometimes be played as an offlaner, more of core, because you want to get this item so early. But if you're able to get it as a support, you don't have the best farming abilities, but you can participate in a lot of fights, you can snowball the game, you can get this, and you can just dominate the game with that. So that's the main part of Venge. That's how to think about Venge in general, with her spells and seeing how you can use them. And again, it's pretty straightforward, but you can see how in fights and stuff, making sure you're positioning right, swapping the right person in and out, swapping the right enemy, stunning the right target, all that kind of stuff, using Wave of Terror at the right time in the right position to cancel blinks, it can get pretty complicated, even though the abilities are pretty straightforward. So that's Venge. Those are her abilities. Now let's jump into a game and see how she's played. So now we're jumping into a replay of White Mom playing Venge 5, and you can pretty much play this hero 5 or 4, but 5 is more popular, so we're going to be looking at that right now. And the laning stage is honestly pretty straightforward and simple. You're a universal hero. You used to be an agility hero, and because of that, you have decent attack speed, good right-click damage. Obviously, universal heroes, that's kind of just what they do, is they have good base damage. So he also bought a bunch of stats here. So really, you'll see this lane kind of be a little bit chaotic. I mean, it is a Darkseer, which is kind of notorious for just doing nothing early on in the game, in the laning phase. So you can see they're like cutting the wave, and it's just going to be a bunch of chaos. And I'm not going to speak exactly to, you know, what's happening in this chaos. It's more the fact that obviously a Monkey King is a pretty aggressive hero as a core as well, with the lifesteal and the stun, and then you're Venge with decent base damage, good right-click animation, not the best range, but you are a ranged hero in general, so I mean that's still good. And you have a stun, so kind of a 2-stun lifesteal aggressive lineup like this. These two melee heroes cannot fight into this. That's why they're doing all this crazy stuff. But in your games, they probably will not be doing these weird lane shenanigans. So you will just be able to be aggressive. And there's really not much to speak about that's special with Venge. It's just like, you have a stun. You do good damage. You right-click them. So trade with melee heroes. You are pretty much going to trade really well with most melee heroes. Block the camp. Pull the camp if the wave gets pushed. Make sure to try to play with your carry. You know, if they're a good aggressive carry. Otherwise, just like try to get them as much farm as possible. There's really not much special to be done in the laning stage. And so you can see, obviously, a bunch of chaos here. I'll just wait till we get the first blood. See, he gets charged on, but then he has the stun. And this is what they didn't want to deal with. They didn't want to have to deal with the aggressive Monkey King with his stun, as well as having the Venge stun. And then the Wave of Terror. Once you get this level 2, you also have this damage reduction minus armor. You're just like a huge threat with not very much skill involved in the laning stage. So that's Venge in the laning stage. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. More about general supporting, understanding general supporting concepts is what's important in the lane with this hero. So I fast forwarded through the laning stage. She's obviously been involved in a lot of kills, assists, all that kind of stuff, but there's not much to say about that specific to Venge. That's more just like general support stuff. But now I want to show you a fight that happens in the mid-game, 10 minutes. The laning stage is pretty much over now. They took mid-tower. This is what you can do with this hero. This hero's effectiveness is shown as soon as you get your ultimate, is that, I mean, your stun does a lot of damage. The Wave of Terror is very hard to deal with. And then it's a troll, so he does have ultimate. He presses it before the stun comes out. They go on the Ember there, and you can see he's able to save the Ember with the swap, where if there was no Venge in this game, that Ember would have definitely died. They probably would have killed the troll still, but the Ember would have died and had no effectiveness in this fight. You could see that he ended up getting away and then doing a little bit of extra stuff in the fight. He used a few more slight of chains, your sleight of fists and searing chains, and just having more effectiveness in the fight, which would not have happened if there was no Venge. This is just the power of Venge. It's so hard to take fights into this hero once it has ultimate, which is like, you know, obviously pretty early in the game. If you're in the correct positioning, you're being aggressive with your core, then it's going to be hard for the enemy to really win fights unless they have overwhelming numbers and positioning. So you can see now, he's kind of constantly playing aggressive. That's what you want to be doing in the game, is playing aggressive with your cores. You always want to be paired with a core. Sometimes there's heroes like Jakiro or other things like that that can like D-push waves and stuff. A Snapfire might D-push a wave because they have good farming abilities. But this is not a farming hero. You do not farm creep waves, which is what can make this hero a little bit tougher at lower MMRs, because maybe your allies are just going to jungle. They're not going to get very aggressive, so that can be a little bit of a problem. So, I mean, if your allies are just jungling and they're not getting aggressive, sure, maybe D-push a wave, that's fine. But overall, you want to be communicating with your team to get aggressive, to play aggressive, because you have this great stun, you have Wave of Terror, you have a save, you have positioning abilities that makes, you know, this early on, nobody's going to have a Blink Dagger. And so, you know, your positioning, your swap is just going to be something that no one can really deal with. You can see they just delete that Pudge. Like, as long as you're playing aggressive, you can do really well in this hero, and obviously that's kind of just how to play in the mid game. Play alongside a core, try to be as aggressive as possible. Even in losing games, you can be very, very effective with this hero once you hit level 6. So the next thing I want to show you actually is kind of this mid-game, 16-17 minutes. They're going Roche here, and he actually tanked a bunch of the Roche. He's standing in the Roche pit. Yes, they're trying to get it done really quickly before the enemy comes to contest the Roche, but, you know, he has 200 health. The Earth Spirit jumps in, and then he's just deleted. And this is exactly what you don't want to be doing as a Venge. So it's just a good example. Obviously, there was reasons for it. Like I said, they wanted to finish Roche as quickly as possible, so they did get the Aegis on the Monkey, which was good, because he did die the first time very quickly, and then he was able to kill the Pudge. But, you know, if he was standing outside the Roche pit on maybe higher HP, not just in there, you know, helping, he would have had a chance to save the Nature's Prophet, to save the Monkey King from dying after the Roche happened. I think the Dawnbreaker is invisible for some reason on in the game. The Dawnbreaker is currently right here. The replay's bugged. You see the Dawnbreaker's dying. But in any case, that's what you don't want to be doing on Venge. You want to sit outside of the place that the enemy is going to initiate. You don't want to get initiated on. You want to be out of vision. You want to be in the trees. You want to be in fog, whatever. Because if you get initiated on and you die early, that's just super bad, because now you can't use your swap, can't cancel stuns, can't stun people, you can't do all the things you do as a Venge, and that's the whole point of the hero. So anyway, that's what you don't want to be doing in team fights as a Venge, is being the one that's in the front lining, getting initiated on, dying quickly in the fights. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to get aggressive with this hero. They already kind of took a high ground fight, but it wasn't the best to show Venge's strength, so I didn't show that. But this is very good because they smoke up, and they're going to get aggressive with the Venge swap to swap the offlaner out of position, and they just basically kill the offlaner before he can do anything. They swap in, she stuns from pretty long range, and then, you know, now they don't have Darkseer for the defense, which is a very, very important hero for the defense, and the Ember's able to just jump in the back line, kill another hero, and now it's a 3v5, and there's basically nothing the enemy can do. And they try to still take the fight, but it's just not going to work at all in this 3v5, because the Venge is basically able to just control everybody. You know, the Ember's able to control everybody. They're doing insane damage. They have a Nature's Prophet. Again, another swap that's aggressive. So this is the whole thing. It's like, you don't always have to be defensive with the hero sitting in the back. And that's kind of the skill of the hero, is if you sit in the back, it's because you're scared of initiations. You're scared of something where they're going to jump in. The problem is, this lineup doesn't really have the jump that you're that scared of. Like, there's not like some big initiation that you need to save somebody from. They have like roll, they have this blink, Darkseer, vacuum, they have charge, but all that stuff is like telegraphed or not as important. Like, people can pop BKBs and stuff. So really, a lot of this game, the Venge is better to just be aggressive, swap people out of position. So that's the whole thing, is like knowing whether you want to swap people out of position or into position. So that is my Vengeful Spirit guide. As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.